Deep in the wild, tangled green of the Amazon jungle, there's this secret just hanging out in the dark, wet dirt. Honestly, it doesn't look like much, kind of just resembles a really dirty sweet potato. People call it cassava. So while the harsh sun is just beating down on all those green leaves up top, this tough little brown root is quietly chilling underground. Most jungle dirt is actually super poor and thin. A lot of plants would literally just starve in it. But not cassava. It just shrugs, grows huge, and thrives on soil that would destroy pretty much anything else. Now, you'd probably think the local bugs and jungle pests would absolutely devour something like that, right? But they leave cassava completely alone because it's packing a built-in shield. And it's a really deadly secret. Tucked deep inside that tough flesh is a super bitter poison called cyanide. Yeah, actual cyanide. It's totally enough to stop any insect dead in its tracks. And honestly, it can seriously hurt us humans too. Like a raw bite will make you incredibly sick. A bigger bite? Well, that can be fatal. It's like the jungle is fiercely protecting its treasures, and cassava, it absolutely demands your respect.
So put yourself there for a second. Imagine arriving in those deep, ancient woods thousands of years ago. You're traveling with your family, you're exhausted, and man, you are so hungry. You spot these massive, hardy cassava plants, and you just know there are these big, energy-packed roots right down there in the earth. But then you remember that massive, poisonous problem. You can't just toss it in a fire and roast it like a regular potato. You really have to figure out a way to outsmart a ridiculously clever plant. Those ancient families actually started this super dangerous process of trial and error. They'd watch the wild animals, and they noticed that even the wildlife knew to stay far away from those bitter roots. But the people? They decided they had to try anyway. They'd dig up these incredibly heavy roots from the mud and literally use sharp rocks to scrape and peel away the skin. The white part inside looked like perfectly safe, totally normal food. But that dark danger was still right there, just hiding in the flesh. Someone eventually tried mashing it all up and washing it in the river. The water washed away some of the bad stuff, which honestly was a brilliant move, but it still wasn't completely safe to eat. But they didn't quit. They just kept experimenting day after day. Eventually, they figured out that if they grated that hard root down into a messy mush, it would break open all those tiny hidden pockets of poison and let the bad stuff spill out. The problem was, wet mush still traps the poison inside. So they invented this incredibly brilliant tool. It's a long, woven tube made of palm leaves, and it's called a tapiti. Think of it exactly like one of those woven finger traps you played with as a kid. You pull it, and it gets super skinny and tight. They would stuff all that wet, dangerous mush right inside the tapiti, and then stretch the tube out as hard as they humanly could. The tightening tube squeezed the mush, and all this yellow juice carrying the bad poison just dripped right out the bottom, leaving the safe, clean white mush completely locked inside. Once they finally had that safely squeezed mush, they laid it out to dry. They just let the sun bake away any tiny leftover traces of the poison until the flour was completely safe. Then they cooked that dry flour on hot stones, transforming it into this beautiful, warm, flat, round bread. It tasted amazing, and it gave everyone so much pure energy. And get this, they didn't even waste that poisonous juice. They boiled that yellow liquid for hours and hours, basically chasing the dark danger away, until it miraculously turned into a rich, tasty dark soup. Mastering this whole process completely changed the game. Families didn't have to wander around hungry all the time anymore. They could actually stay in one safe spot and build these big, thriving villages. All because cassava basically never fails you. It survives terrible dry spells, massive rainstorms, and huge floods, just waiting patiently underground until people need it. A farmer can literally leave a root buried in the dirt, and it'll stay fresh for 2 whole years. It functions perfectly as nature's own underground refrigerator, keeping all that food safe and fresh right up until you're ready to dig it up. The whole village started getting in on it, working together. You had mothers teaching their daughters the safe steps, grandmothers passing down stories about their clever ancestors while their hands grated and squeezed those heavy roots. Making the bread was this all-day thing, with fires burning bright under the baking stones. It was definitely hard work, but that shared rhythm, it made the community incredibly strong. Cassava totally became the undisputed king of Amazon food, filling empty bellies with joy and giving kids the energy to grow tall. And then, this magical plant went on a massive global journey. Travelers packed the roots onto boats and sailed down the vast Amazon River, sharing the plant with totally new friends. Before long, ships were carrying the stems all the way across the ocean. Cassava made its way to Africa and over to Asia.
People in totally new lands planted the stems in their own dirt, and the roots just grew there too. Millions of people learned the secret. They grew it in dry, harsh deserts and invented completely new foods from the flower, which ended up saving countless families from going hungry. Today, it's low-key everywhere. You probably know it best as tapioca pudding or even those dark, chewy boba pearls sitting at the bottom of your go-to milk tea. Yep, that aesthetic little drink totally comes from this tough jungle root. Mind-blowing, right? And while we're casually sipping our sweet drinks, scientists are in labs studying this ancient plant, just completely marveling at its incredible survival skills, trying to learn whatever they can from the indigenous farmers who literally knew its secrets the whole time. Because as climate change makes our world hotter and hotter, a lot of our regular crops are just dying off in the heat. But cassava? It basically just shrugs and keeps on growing. It's a true survivor. When the rain stops and everything else completely dries up, cassava is still right there, feeding people. It's this massive, reliable safety net for everyone.
Back in the Amazon, though, the old ways are still incredibly special. Indigenous peoples still honor exactly how it all started. They still weave those long palm tippities by hand, they still sing their traditional songs while they grate the root, and they deeply honor the history of their home. They know the plant is a gift, and they remember the immense, backbreaking work of their ancestors. They never, ever forget that original struggle.
Because even today, a raw root is still very deadly. You just cannot cheat those ancient steps. The plant demands your full, undivided attention, and it literally forces you to be careful. It teaches a really beautiful lesson, honestly. Good things require hard work and patience. You just can't rush a miracle. You have to follow the right path. You know, the Amazon holds so many deep secrets, but cassava is arguably the most important one of all. It's not shiny gold or silver, it's literally life, just hidden in the dirt. It's exactly like stumbling upon a locked treasure box buried right there in the mud. You have to figure out this incredibly tricky code to actually open it. And those ancestors, they cracked the hardest code ever. With brave hearts and smart brains, no science labs anywhere in sight, they unlocked food for the entire world. We totally forget where our food begins, don't we? We buy things wrapped up in shiny plastic bags at the grocery store, completely detached from the dirt and the actual danger it took to get it to us. But this humble, plain little root reminds us of the truth. Food is a deal we make with nature. The jungle absolutely doesn't hand out free gifts. True power is usually super quiet, and true heroes don't always sparkle. And because of that quiet power, cassava feeds 500 million people today. 500 million. Just let that massive amount of fed bellies sink in for a second. It all started with hungry ancestors in the wild Amazon, and now it literally connects the entire world. Think about it. A child in Brazil eating warm flatbread, a kid in Nigeria eating the soft mash, someone in Asia drinking sweet boba. They all share the exact same jungle root. It's this beautiful global family tree branching out from one single tough plant. Which is exactly why we absolutely have to protect the incredible Amazon rainforest. It gave us this amazing, life-saving food in the first place. And indigenous farmers are still out there protecting the plant's diversity, growing all these different healthy types of yellow and white cassava. We really can't afford to lose that green jungle and all the other wild secrets it's holding on to for us.
It's funny, big industrial farming machines are always trying to copy the old ways, but they often just completely fail. Heavy, modern machines just can't always beat the brilliant, ancient engineering of the tapiti. The simple physics of woven palm leaves grabbing tight somehow outlasts all that shiny modern steel. It's just a flawless system. Water washes the bitter taste away, fire cooks the danger completely out, earth grows the root in the absolute dark. All the elements working perfectly together to pull life straight from deadly poison, turning total fear into daily joy. It's kind of mind-blowing. This entire journey started with hungry people who simply refused to give up and starve. They looked at poison and somehow incredibly saw food. Their hope and their bravery changed human history, giving humanity this giant, lasting gift. We owe them a huge thank you, honestly, because we get to eat today purely because they were brave enough to try. And that tough brown root is still out there, sitting strong in the dirt, waiting patiently for whatever challenge comes next, totally ready to feed the next generation. It really is the ultimate story of human courage. It makes you wonder, though, if a deadly root could be transformed into a global lifeline, what other world-changing secrets are lying hidden right beneath our feet, just waiting for someone brave enough to crack the code?
Hey, if you enjoyed this explainer, do me a favor. Hit the like button, share this with someone who loves a good story, and definitely subscribe so we can keep diving into these hidden worlds together.